Okay, I can do this. 20 minutes, let's do this. Hello, Internet. This is Olin from What I'm Listening To. I am here today to talk about a very unique and yet very cool genre, and that genre is known as post-rock. Post-rock is a subgenre of experimental rock. It uses the same formula as rock, so guitar, bass, drums, etc., sometimes vocals, not always, but instead of following traditional rock formulas, they use the guitars and bass and all that more as a facilitator for textures, ambient, noise, and basically non-traditional rock stuff. And there's all these different approaches to post-rock. So there's some that's much more jazzy sounding, there's some that's noisy, there's some that's beautiful, but it's all very unique and very cool. So today I have a stack of great post-rock albums that I have here in my collection, and I'm very excited to show them to you. So with that being said, let's begin. The first album I have here, this is a band called Explosions in the Sky. I love this album. This is called The Earth Is Not a Cold, Dead Place. I've always felt that their band name is a pretty accurate representation of what their music sounds like. It's very beautiful, well-composed, dynamic. It's just very good stuff. I've had this album digitally for a couple of years now, but what made me go out and get the physical copy of this CD was 4th of July. My bike got stolen, and I was just feeling really upset about that. My coworker graciously drove me home, and when I got home, I had to go move my car because it was going to be towed. So as I was walking to where my car was parked, I could hear all the fireworks out in the distance, and for whatever reason, I just pulled out my phone and started playing the first song on here, First Breath After the Coma. Something about hearing that song while the fireworks were going on in the distance was a very beautiful moment, despite the fact that I was feeling really sad, but I just connected with that song. That was the first time I had heard that song in quite some time, so afterwards I knew I had to go and get the physical copy of the CD, and so here it is. This is a wonderful album and a wonderful band, absolutely worth checking out. The next album I have here, this is a Godspeed You Black Emperor album. These guys are legends in the post-rock worlds. Their music is incredible. What makes their music so great is the compositions they have. They are very complex and dynamic, like Explosions in the Sky, but it's almost like they have a full orchestra that's just strictly doing post-rock. Plus the themes they cover are really desolate, as if the world is ending, everything's corrupt, everything's dying. It's just really depressing music. The first two albums they do are masterpieces. They're probably the best albums that they've done, which is awesome, but it also kind of sucks because they really set the bar high for themselves, and every other release, though is considered good, I feel like a lot of their fan base is slightly disappointed because they want more of those first two albums. This album in particular is kind of the underdog. From what I understand, the band wasn't necessarily reinventing the wheel. It wasn't nearly as good as the first two albums, but I found this for a super cheap price, and I got it for a couple different reasons. One, because the cover is incredible. It really fits into the desolate themes these guys do. But the main reason I got it is because this is an album produced by Steve Albini, who I've talked immensely about in these vlogs. He's the reason why I buy certain albums. It's not a bad album. I really enjoy it. I just like their music altogether. So this is their album Yonki UXO. Great band. Go check out all their albums, particularly the first two albums, and then listen to this one. It's great. Next album I have here, this is a band called Set Fire to the Flames. Talk about Godspeed You Black Emperor. This is actually more or less of a side project featuring some of the members from Godspeed. It's similar to Godspeed in the sense that the music is very desolate sounding. This is much more experimental than Godspeed. The band rented out this old house that was actually scheduled to be demolished, and they set up a makeshift studio out there and recorded a lot of songs, most of which were unedited. So on this disc, you will hear songs that have people walking around in the background or cars driving in the distance. It's all very raw, and something about that makes this album really, really cool. And since I'm a big fan of experimental music and Godspeed You Black Emperor, it was obvious that I had to get this album, so here we have it. This is their album, Signs Reigns Rebuilder. It's super cool. Semi-related to Godspeed You Black Emperor, but this is a band called Silver Mountain Zion. Why this is related to Godspeed is because it's released off a label called Constellation. They do a lot of the later releases, but they've also released a bunch of great post-rock bands. This is one of them. These guys are like a full-on orchestral post-rock band. Their compositions are just gorgeous. They have a song on here, where is it? 13 Angels Standing Guard Around the Side of Your Bed. The title of that track caught my attention, and when I heard it, I was just mesmerized by it. Beautiful, droning, classical-oriented music. It's just such an experience to listen to. This is an album that I think everybody should listen to from start to finish with a good set of headphones. You really need to experience this. Definitely an essential post-rock album to check out. This is super cool. Next album I have here, this is actually another Constellation release. This is a band called Fly Pan Am. I kind of got this one on a whim, and the only reason I picked it up is because every time I go to Amoeba, I always have a tradition where I go check out what they have by Flying Saucer Attack in case maybe they release something that I didn't know. And right next to Flying Saucer Attack, there's stuff by this band, Fly Pan Am. So this band has always been on the back of my mind because of that. And one day I just thought, I'll look them up and see what they sound like. Similar to the last Constellation releases I talked about, but this is much more guitar-driven and droning guitar, if I might add. Still very cool, and because it was super cheap, I decided, hell, I'll pick this one up, I'll give it a listen. In fact, I do actually still have to listen to this. I shamefully haven't gotten nearly as into it. However, I do like what I have heard so far on here, so I'm assuming I will love the rest of it. So this is Fly Pan Am. What is this album called? Oh, I think it's self-titled. This is cool. The next album I have here, this is a band called South Pacific. Another album I stumbled across on a whim. What made me want to check them out is they were not only categorized as post-rock, but they were also categorized as space rock and shoegaze. Those are genres I feel like would all work together if you somehow fuse them, and yet there aren't really that many bands out there that play with them. The only other shoegaze space rock band I know of, other than Flying Saucer Attack, is LSD and the Search for God. So when I found this album, I was really excited to see that space rock and post-rock were together. This is such a cool band, and unfortunately this is their only album they release, save for an EP that they released too, but their discography is very, very small. I love space rock music, and I love just zoning out to it, so when you have something like post-rock added to the mix, it creates something incredible. Really awesome album, Constance, also worth checking out. And the final album I have here, this is a band called Disco Inferno. This is one of those albums where I heard one song off of it and I knew I had to buy this album. They started out as your average post-punk band from England, and over time they just started playing with their sound until they got here where they really started experimenting. A key feature of this album is the samples. A lot of it is just looped sounds that create this interesting ambience. For example, in Sharky Water, there's this drippy noise that goes on throughout the entire song, and guitars build on it, and then it speeds up and slows down, and the whole time there's just water in the background. Not to mention the song Footprints in the Snow, which has a similar quality, but instead of water, it's somebody walking in snow, so there's that crunch, crunch, crunch. And though that sounds a little weird, it somehow works, and it's done really well. I fucking love this album. I'm probably gonna have to check out this band's other stuff because I loved listening to this so much. Yet another great album, and yet another excellent example of post-rock. Okay, internet, that does it for me. I have to go make my lunch and leave for work in 5 minutes. So, hey, if you have any bands or albums you want me to check out, particularly post-rock bands or albums, leave a comment down below. If I like it, maybe I'll include it in a vlog. But until then, this is Olin from What I'm Listening To, signing out. Goodbye. Yeah.